There are a few different types of errors you'll be concerned with in your HTML5 messaging application. Fortunately, most of these can be handled in the same way. Here we have a working copy of errors1 start.html and errors2 start.html. I've made working copies on my server, and I'm editing directly on my server. We'll just take a moment now and page through these for the benefit of those of you who need that. And here's errors2. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to go into each of these files and edit our constants, make sure those are set correctly. Here we have origin2, which is set to the host name of the server with working2 on it, and URL2, which is the complete URL to errors2working.html. And we'll go into errors2 and check the same thing. And here's the line that you want to be concerned with, and make sure that that has the host name for your origin1 server. And now coming back here into errors1, we need to add the event handler for the error function. And you notice down here we have a function called window error handler, and this is the error handler. Actually, for both of these, we have the same function in both of these files. And so that's called window error handler. I'm just going to put that in my copy buffer and come up here into the init function and add a handler for that. Now in this case, I'm going to use an IDL handler. So I'm going to say window.onError equals, and the name of that function with a semicolon. I'm going to save that. The reason I'm using an IDL listener instead of an add event listener is that support for error handlers with add event listener is inconsistent amongst the different browsers. And even here on Firefox, it's not completely implemented. So this works well with the IDL listener, and it does not work well with the add event listener. So I'm just going to make a copy of this line, and I'm going to put exactly this same line into errors2 working.html. We'll scroll down here to the init function and paste it in right there and press save. So now we have the event listener installed for onError in both of our files. And we can come over here to the browser and load this up. So I'm going to load up errors1 working.html on my server. And there you see the messages going back and forth exactly how we expect them to. And now we'll just start introducing some errors and see how that works. It's a really good idea to play around with errors when you're building error handlers so that you know what to expect. So the first thing we'll do is we'll change our origin from 2 to 3. So this is in errors1 working. And so when we come in here and handle message events, the first thing we do is we check if the event origin is equal to this constant. And if not, we display this error message here. So I'm going to come back over here into the browser and reload this. And you notice we get the message from untrusted origin, and it lists the origin where the message came from, which is different than what it was expecting, because here it's expecting 3 instead of 2. So this is a message that we're sending out ourselves from this test. And so it's not really using the onError handler. Let's go ahead and use the onError handler now. So I'm going to change that back. And I'm going to come down here and put something nonsensical in this post message. I'm just going to say foo. That's not a full URL. And so if for some reason you had an error like that, we'll go back into the browser and we'll bring that error up. And you see we have an uncaught exception. So this is our error handler working. You notice when we come down here to our error handler, it prints the message and the file name and the line number. And here we have the uncaught exception message and the file name and the line number right there. So this gives us some idea of what the problem is. An invalid or illegal string was specified on line 44. And if we come back up here to line 44, we can deduce what the problem is. So I'm just going to put that back to our constant, and let's go make another error. If I come down here to line 54 and I actually call a function that's not defined, I just misspell this function here. Instead of log, it's xlog. And so I'll press save, and we'll come back over here to the browser and we'll load that up. And we see it says xlog is not defined, and it doesn't run the rest of the script. It just stops right there. Xlog is not defined. gives us the file name and the line number on line 54. So that's exactly what we expect. On the other hand, if we introduce an error here by misspelling the word function, this will not catch the error. Why? Because this is the function where the error handler is actually installed. And so if we never get to that line, we're not going to get our error handler at all. So if I save this and bring this up and run it, you'll see that I get no error message at all. On the other hand, I can come up here to Tools and Web Developer. This is in the Firefox browser. You have something like this in most of the browsers. And I'll bring up the console. And if I press reload, you'll notice that I actually get an error message. It's a typical cascading interpreter error message that doesn't really tell you what the problem is, but it gives you an idea of where to look. It says it's missing a semicolon around line 51. And in fact, what it is it's got an unrecognized keyword. And so we take out that X and we save it and we come back in here and we reload and we see that everything runs as we expect it to. And I can take down that Web Developer console. And so now that we have our error handler working, we have a complete set of tools for HTML5 messaging, and we can look at a more interactive example in the next chapter.